as the benefactor of Shantideva Center, who's, you know, owns the building that Shantideva Center's in, and all of you for making the time right now. Tonight is about self-compassion. And then tomorrow there's a couple of sessions on death and dying practices. And on Sunday, it's on karma. Is that the right order, Sheila? Did I get that right? Okay. So feel free to pull into any of those sessions. And I do think you have to register first, which is helpful for Shantideva Center. This is one way for the centers to stay current and alive, and please support your local centers. It's really, really important. So I can't say that enough. So, and think of other ways if you're able. For instance, I've mentioned this before, if you're not having the normal latte that you have every day, and you're not going out to dinner, and you're not going to the movies, and I know you may be ordering food out and you're buying groceries, but you may find you're not spending as much on gas or commuting or those other things. So perhaps that's a way you can make a donation to Shantideva Center for hosting, or a local center like that. And in addition, if you're interested, George runs Yogis and Yoginis, the yoga studio that shares the space with Shantideva Center in Brooklyn. And he is hosting online yoga sessions. So you can find that out from searching Yogis and Yoginis. And just so you know, and a lot of you have probably found online things, but this is another way, in a sense, of supporting that building where Shantideva Center is. So that would be great. So we're going to start with some meditation. And so I'd just like you, please, to find a relaxing space for your body and mind. The main part of this posture, as many of you know, is to find a relaxed space. And if you're seated in a chair, it's absolutely perfectly fine. Just have your feet then straight, flat on the ground, both feet evenly, not legs crossed. But if you are seated in a meditation posture, that's perfectly fine. That means with the legs crossed in a more kind of lotus or vajra position. And from that space, I'd just like you to feel your rootedness right now with the earth. So first with your seat, cushion beneath you or the chair beneath you. Lightly close your eyes. You could focus those towards the tip of your nose. And check that your spine is as extended as possible. As you keep as even as you can airflow through the nostrils. And begin lessening the distractions in your external reality, bringing the gaze inward. And allow each inhalation and exhalation now to deepen as you begin to bring your focus there. Notice your exhalation fully. So if you'd like, we're just focusing right now on the exhalation, the release. If you space out during the inhalation, no problem. Let your entire experience Be there with you as you wait for that exhalation. And then feel your body as best as you can when you exhale again. And as Kristen Neff says, she's done a lot of research, written some books on self-compassion. I love this statement from her: let your body breathe you. Let your body breathe you. This happens automatically anyway. Can we be there with our focus? With another breath, notice your whole upper body moving with that breath. Notice the expansion. Don't worry if your mind is wandering. When you bring it back to the breath, just feel your body alive and breathing with each breath. We breathe here as we move around the earth, mostly on top of the earth. Allow yourself now to feel as if roots are going down from your feet or your seat deeply into the earth. And there's tentacles from the earth reaching up to support us. This is not an enormously tethered, not rooted in a leaden feeling. This is about support. Allow yourself to feel that support of the roots and the earth beneath you in a positive way, holding you. And allowing the breath to move. So we often get challenged in our lives, in our countries and cultures, by too much activity, by the notion of having to be productive, by battling with laziness, a lack of discipline, depression, anxiety, that come from an idea that we have to hold a certain level of productivity and efficiency. And now we have this unique experience on our entire planet of being quarantined, not in our normal activities. And this takes a new normal now, but it's still not very comfortable. So we are online a lot. We are participating, not in person, where we get a little bit more nourishing interaction sometimes being in person. We've got computer screens in front of us a lot of the day. So it does bring a certain fatigue, different way of relating. So this practice of grounding in the breath is always there for us to bring us back to a center that is whole, can be calm, focused in perhaps a more beneficial way. When we're online, with a number of people and boxes on the screen, we can get scattered. Little stories can start in our minds about each box, and we forget to breathe fully. Focus now back on this groundedness with the earth, allowing you to fully focus on a full inhalation and a full exhalation. You may feel to adjust your posture. And again, the head is not tipped up too much. It's subdued, it's slightly tipped forward. Eyes directed down, a subdued posture. Notice if you're holding tension anywhere in the body. And use the breath to expand and release the tension. And if stories are running in your mind throughout the day, or even right now, let's open our hearts in a unique way. In this tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, we like to find a place where we have no more limits on how we can help all beings, including ourselves. No more limits on how we can help all living beings, or all sentient beings, beings with a consciousness, with a mind. So in this tradition, Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we're focused on fully manifesting ourselves, becoming a Buddha, a fully awakened being. As it's from that place, we're unlimited in best serving, best helping, emphasis on all living beings, all. Imagine that space of mind. Imagine that unfettered, fully open heart. If that's something interesting to you, take a moment trying to imagine that space of mind. And can you direct your motivation right now for our time together and all the events of the rest of your day, even if it's morning where you are, in that particular way. To reach a fully awakened state. Why? The real purpose? To benefit all living beings, every single sentient being. Take a moment now and set that motivation, or whichever motivation puts your mind in a most positive space. And please relax and slowly open your eyes. And when you do, I'd like you to just stay for a moment, savoring this brief meditation experience we just had. So the first thing I wanted to mention about self-compassion is those types of meditations are available all the time, and they're very simple. Many of you are familiar with breathing meditations, the simplest first meditation we usually learn. Also feeling grounded and directing your awareness, so setting a motivation. So what I wanted to mention from there is, can you incorporate that more and more in your daily life if you're not already doing it? And this doesn't mean you're setting up a whole hour-long meditation session. Some of you are already practicing perhaps an hour or two a day or more, or a little less. But I'm talking about when you're feeling the fatigue, when you're conflicted about which online program should I be focused on this week. Or some people I know have contacted me that they've gotten to Wednesday afternoon or Thursday, and all the plans they had for the week didn't happen, and they're feeling really down on themselves. Okay? So those I find are the most powerful moments. The imbalance seems to arise, and this is where we get down on ourselves. And so self-compassion doesn't have a prayer here or a chant. We go to food and we start eating. We decide, I don't feel like exercising because I kind of didn't do anything else this week, so why? I don't really want to exercise. And we start choosing and picking some easier habits that are more readily available. And because they're habitual, they're easier for us to choose. So this is where you can interrupt and have a little crowbar there, 5 minutes. Wherever you are, sit down in a kitchen chair if it is, the living room couch. If you have a meditation space, bring yourself there, or it could be your desk chair and you're feeling forlorn about yourself. Something not working, a little disappointment shows up. Close your eyes. Get together with the inhalation and the exhalation. Slowly let the thoughts stop and just slow down. They'll keep streaming through. Okay, we're often very familiar with the ever-flowing thoughts, so that's very normal. Okay, but right now all I'm doing is letting them go. watching them sift through without getting attached to any of them. Just noting that they're there, right? But what I am looking at is the inhalation and the exhalation. And from there, noting the earth is supporting me, whether you're in a big building in New York, okay? Whether you're in a tent or in something lower to the ground and you can look outside and see trees and know that the earth's supporting the building that you're in. Feel that, feel the roots come up and support you, and the automatic breathing happens, but now I'm noticing it. That's all. That's all. And then from that moment, if I choose, I can think about a motivation for the rest of the day. It doesn't matter what time it is. I have a motivation when I go to sleep. So even then, if you miss the whole day, maybe I can motivate in my sleep. I need to sleep for my health, so I can wake up hopefully more refreshed tomorrow to try to connect with some practice or doing some good deed that will get me to enlightenment more quickly. Why? So I can benefit all living beings. That's the purpose of my sleeping now, with that motivation, okay? So it's always available there, 5 minutes. And when you come out of it again, don't rush to the next thing. Have a minute to savor just noting your body and mind. How does it feel? Let the breathing slow down and notice, how does it feel? Because generally you'll like the feeling. And you have to start noticing the periods in your life that you're liking, because then you'll want to increase those passages. And you know that when you sit down and put the TV on or something else and you're mindlessly looking at something, and you know the feeling, notice then how you feel when you get up from that. Right? Notice aching in the body. Notice the mind a little numb. Notice the guilt that arises. Notice the disappointment or the depression and anxiety because I didn't finish the thing I was supposed to finish, or I could actually watch my breath and focus and have a little stabilizing meditation. Okay? Something that basic, just a little exercise. Some of you are already doing it, you've already got that, but reach for that. Can you familiarize yourself enough to reach for that when negative mind states are arising? Because it's very, very simple. There's no magic for this. There's no special that you need to be meditating for 30 years. Everybody can do this. And I don't care if your mind is wandering all the time. You just notice it wandering and back, another inhalation, another exhalation. Perfectly fine. So let's talk a little bit more about self-compassion. A couple books I would recommend. Kristen Neff is a psychologist, has a book called Self-Compassion, and some really great exercises. She also has a website with meditations and exercises on it, and I will introduce a couple of those. I'll try to get to something tonight. In addition, Christopher Germer also has a book about self-compassion I really, really liked. So those I found really helpful if you're interested and struggling. That, you know, as Buddhists, we have this idea we need to be compassionate for others, but you can't really do that fully unless you understand compassion for yourself. So for me, they fit together, and especially for Westerners in our culture, we're not Himalayans, we're not Tibetans. They have a very different relationship with the Dharma and how they come to practice in compassion. And I think for Westerners, we're driving ourselves often into the ground in a very negative, hostile way. So I feel like self-compassion is a place where we really need to start and focus on. So, and I'm just going to read a Sharon Salzberg, a quote. This kind of compulsive concern that we have in our culture, I'll say, with I, me, and mine, or I'll label it me, myself, and I, okay, isn't the same as loving ourselves. And just because you're self-focused doesn't mean you're self-compassionate. Loving ourselves points us to capacities of resilience, compassion, and understanding. Okay, with those kind of experiences that are within us, okay, that are simply part of being alive. That's from Sharon Salzberg, The Force of Kindness. Okay, so this is not about, you say, but I focus enough on myself. Our Tibetan Buddhist trip is we're not supposed to focus on ourselves at all. And the whole idea is we're so egocentric, so focused on an I that doesn't exist, and so grasping onto the I and so over cherishing that I that we feel like, no, I really shouldn't be nice to myself. Okay, so I'm talking about some real kindness to ourselves, not an over self-cherishing focus on ourselves, but some kindness. Some of that does definitely point to some focus on ourselves, but it's in a very positive way, a positive mode with loving kindness, okay? So, and here's another idea to get to. Instead of thinking and starting with a notion that there's something about you that is broken and needs to be fixed, it would just be nice to understand how we respond to emotional pain. Okay, can we do it in a more compassionate, loving way? In a more compassionate, loving way, like that. So granted, we make mistakes, and that's due to our being human. Okay, that's just a natural part of being human. So, but because I make mistakes, let me be able to roll that into a place where I'm more accepting that I make mistakes at times. I'm not purposely making them, but I'm gentler with myself when they do occur, and then I try to constructively learn from what happened, like that. So I want to talk about three main things about self-compassion, the way we kind of, I think a way that is helpful to focus on these three things predominantly. Mindfulness, shared humanity, and loving kindness. For me, when you're talking about self-compassion, let's simplify it into mindfulness, shared humanity, and loving kindness, okay? And I will make time later for questions and answers, any questions you might have. And we're gonna also try to roll in some additional exercises like that. So mindfulness we're very familiar with. And with mindfulness, we have ways, for instance, when you're experiencing pain, mental or physical, self-compassion, so what will happen is we'll have an idea that we didn't do all the stuff we were supposed to do this week, okay? And I'm just curious right now, when that happens to you, okay, and feel free to unmute or raise your hand for a moment, you haven't gotten to everything you want to get to. You're feeling frustrated. You're zoomed out, perhaps. Too many Zoom things and you're not feeling effective and you're feeling a little wasted, okay? Can you just bring up for me, anybody like to say, how does that sit in your mind? What are your reactions to that? And what is your inner story about that? Please, Patrick.
Oftentimes, if I had to summarize it in one word that comes to me is the word failure, because it's about thriving, it's about competition, and it's about achieving. And what comes with achieving, but validation, self-respect, social kind of peers respect and things like that. So it's regardless of what happened yesterday, today, if I didn't accomplish the goal, then I can get to those modes of failure. So with a very short-term memory behind it.
Right. How many people feel that way? It's really common. Really common. Thank you. What other inner stories are happening when you're in that space?
I wasn't good enough. I didn't do what I said I was going to do, what I set out to do,
Yep.
what I really could have accomplished if I would have put my mind to it.
Right. I'm not good enough. Okay. One more third one. Anybody?
I better speed up.
I better speed up. I better speed up. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So here's one way to deal with it with mindfulness. Okay. you feel the pain. So we've got, I'm a failure. I never do anything right. I'm not good enough. I didn't do it fast enough. I should do it faster. Here's what self-compassion does with mindfulness is, can you cherish yourself in the midst of the pain? You know, I'm noticing there's the pain, right? But if this were a really good friend of mine having this pain, what would you say to them? So Patrick, if you had a friend that said, well, I didn't do anything this week, I'm a failure, what would you say to your friend?
Well, several things, but immediately, if I was only given sort of a short opportunity to, I would, I think I would reference that they are, other people would probably not view them as a failure. That their expectations are probably much higher for the world than the world's expectations are for them.
And Shelley, I'm not good enough. I didn't do the stuff I was supposed to do. I'm not good enough. What if that was your friend telling you that? What would your response be? Yeah, you're not good enough? Yeah.
I would tell them to give some slack and to try again, and maybe you set your expectations too high.
Okay, and then we had a third person speeding. Who wants to speed up?
That was me. Tom.
Okay. Yeah, so I didn't do it fast enough. I need to get more efficient and do it faster. What would you tell your friend if your friend was like that, saying that?
I actually did have a conversation with someone else this week on this topic, and we talked about capacity. I only have so much, we all have this much capacity, and I was explaining that we don't believe it. I could do more, that kind of thing.
Yep. And then if I feel like I don't believe it and I can do more, then disappointment rears its head, because I had an expectation for myself. So for me also, expectation, and some of you have heard me say this before, is the mother of disappointment. Okay. So again, trying, and this also incorporates not only mindfulness I mentioned, but shared humanity and loving kindness. All three of these components, when you think about what if my friend was saying that they're a failure? Well, for one, I would really try to experience some loving kindness with them, and I'd say, I don't really think you're a failure just because you didn't accomplish these tasks this week. Wouldn't we also try to remind them of positive things that they may have been involved in this week? And the other thing with the speed issue is I personally, and I don't know for the rest of you, I mean, we're adapting right now. It's a very interesting period, okay? But what I also notice is we talk about the pause button got pushed for the globe. The pause button got pushed. Certainly for the United States, there's no question. And Australia, I think those of you that said you're in Australia, the pause button got pushed. And the thing is, it's unique that I've found an interesting space because things had to slow down, but we have a pattern and a habit that it has to go fast. I need to do everything. So because the pause button got pushed, I should have accomplished everything by now. Okay. So again, and a little bit what Tom was saying, there's capacity. So is it realistic what you're setting yourself up for doing? And what you're trying to do, are you relying on other people to help you with some of that? They have a different capacity too. So I think a real pause is that inhalation and the exhalation again. And then so I'm aware, my mindfulness brings in, well, this is really uncomfortable that I feel I have to do all this week. Or I got to the later part of the week and then realized I hadn't done it. Okay, here's basic mindfulness with it. I inhale, I exhale, and I notice that feeling that I didn't get done the things I wanted to get done. If I want to bring in shared humanity there, wow, you know, I bet a lot of other people feel this way. In fact, I talked to 3 friends this week that are having the same challenges I'm having. Inhale. I exhale. And I just stay there feeling that. I'm not the only one feeling this. This is what other people are feeling too. I feel disappointed. Use my shared humanity. Other people are feeling disappointed. Other people might be feeling like Shelley said, I'm not good enough. I didn't get this done, I'm not good enough. Okay, now let's offer some loving kindness. This was our 3rd component. We had mindfulness, shared humanity, loving kindness. Loving kindness, I take my mindfulness. Wow, I feel like a failure. Not going fast enough. I'm not good enough. I don't do anything right. I'm really disappointed. I'm sure other people feel this way. The friends I spoke to this week feel this way. What if this were one of my friends feeling this? Wouldn't I express something kind to them? Yep. Well, I'm a sentient being. What if I just now on this next inhalation breathe in some gentleness? What if I exhale rigidity? Breathing in kindness. Imagine exhaling disappointment. Breathing in another positive experience. You can put in your own words, whatever resonates with you. Maybe I'm breathing in resilience. And I'm exhaling desperation. Just a few breaths. The loving kindness there. Letting go. Negative mind state. Slowly. We have to practice over time because we're so wound in our culture and everybody's feeling this way and nobody kind of lets themselves off the hook. So some people, I know I talked to some people this week who said, well, they need to feel guilty because that's rotating out there just because they're used to feeling guilty. And if they don't feel guilty, something's not good enough. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche told me many years ago, I was raised in house of guilt. That's how I was raised, okay? So I have a deep imprint of guilt I've worked on for years, have really dismantled tremendous amount of it. And he said, yeah, you know, if you die in that moment when your mind's guilty, guilt is simply a negative obsessive cycling of the mind. It's different from regret. Regret plans to have a remedy to undo the negative thing that you feel you did. We have a practice like Vajrasattva. I can experience regret because I messed up something. I made a mistake, I'm human. And then I'm intending I'm going to do some Vajrasattva practice, a purification practice, to counter the negative thing I did. So I don't hold on to the regret, I let it go. But guilt doesn't do that, it just holds on and obsessively cycles, okay? It's just a pattern we're familiar with. In Western culture, extremely familiar with it. We were raised on it. We were spoon-fed it. Some of it was rammed down our throats, okay? So, and I told you this story years ago. I told you this story when I got into Tibetan Buddhism, and language-wise, etymologically, I found out that the Tibetans don't have a word for guilt in their language. Well, that made me want to sign up immediately. I'm like, who are these people? You know, and then I explored it with them. Now they feel bad about stuff. It's not that they don't feel bad, but they know they have ways to clean it up. They have faith in those ways being effective, right? So, and one example I give is, I gave that example years ago of a family, a very close family I'm close with, a Western family that hosted a young Rinpoche And his older attendant in his 40s came to stay with the family for 6 months and live with them because he went to school with the children. And the attendant wanted him to learn English. And I mentioned this. And so what happened is, because they were living there, the attendant said to the family, if I'm living here with you, and the family wouldn't let them pay anything, and, you know, very gracious, generous. But he said, I'd like to have a role in the family, some kind of task I can do, a job. Like, can I clean something, or, you know, can I do something? And the mother said, you can wash the dishes after dinner. Like, if we have dinner at home, you know, most nights, do you want to do the dinner dishes? And he said, great. So he launched in very exuberantly, the way the Tibetans would do, banging and clanging and chipping the dishes, in cleaning the dishes. And after a couple of weeks, the mother said to her husband, the husband who's a psychologist, okay, you need to talk to him. You know, you need to talk to him and tell him about all the dishes he's chipping. Okay. Why couldn't she tell him herself? Because if somebody came to us, if we're a guest at a house, and someone came to us and said, you know, I really appreciate you washing the dishes, but a lot of them are getting chipped. You're a little rough on them. Could you be a little more gentle? We would totally, you know, take it personally and think they don't want us to be there anymore because of this imbalanced state we have with our minds, you know, of the, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm, you know, I mess up. Like, we're so focused on that, on all the negative. So as soon as somebody makes a little criticism that is not personal, just, you know, a little correction, let's say, a little improvement, we internalize it, and the guilt starts, and you know, we're leaving. They want us out of the house. This is all the mother could think of. It took the father in the household 1 month to speak to him. 1 month, okay? And when he did, it was a lot of umming and erring and, oh, you know, until he could finally come out in a very nice way and say, we love, you know, it started with, we love that you're here. Like, it was so this over effusive, okay, we love that you're here, and it's so great you're doing the dishes. However, some of them are getting chipped, and I wonder if you could just be a little more gentle with the dishes. What was his response, the Tibetan attendant, his response? Okay. I don't think he ever thought about it again. And he washed the dishes with incredible vigilance after that. Very, very careful, did a great job, very happy. Is that how you would respond? Okay. So really, for me, when I heard they had no guilt, so I was exploring years ago guilt, how it was manipulating me. And so just noticing those periods. Okay, with loving kindness, I get to dismantle slowly the guilt. Because I look at the guilt, I'll note, and all you're doing with mindfulness then is I inhale, I exhale, there's guilt. Oh, there it is. Inhale, exhale. I might name it guilt. I'm feeling guilty right now. Okay, let's use some shared humanity with that. I bet there's a lot of people on the planet that feel guilty. I have a couple friends I spoke to this week that were feeling really guilty. I'm just inhaling and exhaling that, noting that. I'm not the only one, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one feeling this. Let me take a few inhalations and exhalations and just hold that space. And now the loving kindness, okay? The guilt doesn't serve me or anyone. And the only reason I feel this way is because I'm familiar with it. I was taught this for years. I noticed other people in my family circle or my community or a household or my neighborhood that respond this way. It doesn't mean it's the right way to respond. It's just simply one way to respond. And I'm not finding it very comfortable anymore to respond this way. I don't find it very beneficial. Okay? So as an antidote, as an antidote, bring in some positive thought in your mind. And maybe it's a specific practice you want to do to counter the guilt. Maybe it's light rays of loving kindness that you feel coming from your heart center, permeating your entire body. And let it permeate your mind through every thought. Imagine it sifting through your thoughts, your ideas, your memories. Whatever colored light rays represent that for you. Can you imagine a flower blooming at your heart, or a gem gleaming, all the facets of it gleaming and streaming, letting that melt through all your veins, through all the different systems of your body? Kindness. I am good enough. I am good enough. I'm not a Buddha yet, but I'm trying. And right now, this is as good as I can do. This is as good as I can do. And I'll give an example of just everyday things that are happening to me. So today, honestly, it was not a great day for me. It just, every door and window was slamming. Like that, every time I tried something, to the point of, I completed my income taxes in April, and a friend helps me with them. So I finished them in April, and she said to me, do you want to file? I owed money. And she said, do you want to pay the money now, state and federal, or do you want to do it in July? There's an extension till July 15th. And I said, well, I guess we can do it in July if I owe money, you know, and it wasn't a ton of money, but you know, it was enough. And then I knew it was being paid 2 days ago, the 15th. So I put enough money in my checking. But she had my savings account number. But so it was my mistake. I'd somehow given her the savings account. Okay, whatever it was a mess, and they didn't get filed. And then I ended up with 2 charges of the insufficient fund charges from my bank on both the checking and the savings. Or no, it was because they were both state and federal were taken out of my savings. So 2 insufficient fund charges because all the money was in my checking. And I thought I had set up an overdraft thing in my checking because the money was there. So I started there and then went to pay it online, and the federal one, no problem. And the Pennsylvania one, whatever I did, the site was not going to let me in. It wouldn't let me register. It wouldn't let me pay it. It was just, and so there went 2 hours and back and forth emails with her and her trying to help me. And like, I had 2 other things I was going to do. So, but there I was in the middle of it, getting very frustrated. And I kept feeling like all these things are taking me away from my practice. And then because I had enough familiarity, fortunately, and I'm not any great practitioner, okay? But I stopped at one moment. I literally stopped in front of the computer, didn't do anything else, and I started breathing more deeply. I noticed I wasn't fully breathing, wasn't getting enough air, and I just took a really deep inhalation. And I did it a few times, and I just paused, closed my eyes, felt the rootedness, the groundedness, right? And the other thing I did with the loving kindness, for me, a great component of your self-compassion. Many of you are already practicing this. Please, gratitude. You've heard me talk about this a lot before. Gratitude. Okay, so there I was, all frustrated, and you know, these sites don't work, and I did everything right and did my taxes early, and now I'm gonna have a penalty. And okay, stop, pause, breathe, ground. And suddenly what starts coming up for me immediately is I'm okay. I'm doing the best I can. Isn't it wonderful that I have a computer to be able to do this with? Isn't it wonderful to be able to teach online and help people like that? Isn't it wonderful that I have this wonderful base? Thank you to my parents for providing for me right now with good internet and air conditioning and heat in the winter and a refrigerator that works and a place to wash my clothes and a place to eat, and it's safe. And I mean, I could go on, like so many things that I could be grateful for. And I had a little snag and a couple hours went by and it didn't work the way I wanted it to work. And guess what? This is samsara. This is samsara's nature. Okay. So all I'm saying is, from my practice, this is what gets accessed more quickly. So I don't have to stay in the, it's not working. They're a jerk. I'm going to blame somebody. Something's wrong. This is always happening to me. No, I'm okay. I don't need to do it faster. I'd like it to be done, but I don't really need to do it faster. I need to slow down right now and remind myself what's most important. That's compassion to myself. If I kept railing at it and getting angry, I'm losing the compassionate space that can be there for myself. So it rose up again. Its head came up, and that starts creating more of a habit for me to reach for, to access anytime I get frustrated. That's what's more accessible to me. Okay. So again, very easy, just the breathing. It's not any magical thing. These things happen to me each day. There's some other interruption or something that happens. It's just normal. You all have them. You all have them. Okay, let's go on a little bit. Okay, I want to do another exercise. I put my exercises. Okay. So once again, I had asked if you're having a friend that is being challenged with some negative mind state, and how you would care for them. And this is a basic loving kindness meditation. There's a lot of loving kindness meditations we've done before that you can do. Is, how would you treat a friend? How would you treat a friend? So let me just bring this up. Okay. So I want you to just reflect for a moment. Close your eyes. And I want you to recall a moment, perhaps this past week or month, when a close friend feels really, really bad about him, her, or themselves, or they're struggling in some way. And they've come to you and you're having an interaction, you're talking with them on the phone or in a face call. So imagine you're there in the conversation with your friend and you're listening to what they're saying. Now, how would you respond to your friend in this situation? Okay, especially when you are at your best. And feel free if you want to jot down any notes. What would you typically do in this situation? What would you say? And I want you to also notice the tone in which you typically talk to your friend. So now I'd like you to think about a time you feel really bad about yourself. It could have been today, this week, something, a time you are really struggling. It could be right now. But we just bring to mind this moment. And I'd like you to note, how do you typically respond to yourself in these situations? And feel free if you want to jot down what you typically do, what you say. And I'd really like you to notice the tone in which you talk to yourself. Okay, so I'd like to ask you, and feel free if you want to put your hand up for a moment. Was there any difference in how you treat your friend versus how you treat yourself? I see Denise is laughing.
I'll confess. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I noticed, I'm imagining my friend and oh, I'm just owning Jay. I'm just like calm tones and, you know, trying to be a good listener. And for myself, I'm like, oh, you're such an idiot. You can do better, you know, that sort of thing.
What, for most of you, what was it a little shocking, your tone to yourself versus your tone to your friend, or is it the same? Anybody care to comment? Sam was shaking her head.
Sure, I'll share. It was so different. I mean, to me, that was very telling. I was compassionate, gentle, very gentle and tender, and non-judgmental with a friend, where I found my own self-talk was kind of the opposite. It was judgmental, it was reprimanding. They couldn't have been more different.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's very helpful to do the exercise because you realize, wow, my tone, for me, it was my tone is, I'm like, goodness, you know, I mean, when I was doing this some time ago as well. So here's another thing. Now you notice, if those of you that notice a difference, check out a little bit, why is there a difference? Explore that and spend some time with that. You could spend some time this week. You know, why am I treating myself that way? You know, what factors or fears arise? What factors or fears come into play that lead me to treat myself and others so differently? Have a look at that. Again, are we holding ourselves to different standards? Do I have these really great expectations for myself, like what Tom was saying earlier? You know, do I have unrealistic expectations for myself where I'm not authentic with my capacity? You know, inside I think I'm Superwoman, but the reality is this is all I can do. This is what I'm able to do right now. But I still, you know, for those of you just looking at the ages of us, some of you are probably around my age, and I'm going to ask you, how old do you think you are in your head? Do you ever think about that? So Shelley, how old are you in your head? In your mind?
I think that varies day to day. Sometimes I think I'm much younger, and then sometimes I think I'm a pretty old woman.
Denise, how old are you in your mind?
About 35.
Patty, what about you?
You know, I don't really have an age. I just know I'm younger than that.
And George, what about you?
As long as I don't look at the mirror at the same time, I feel like I'm 35.
Okay, Tom, what about you?
It's confidential.
Okay. I think I get into the 31 to 35 range. That's what I am in my mind. You know, and then suddenly physically I'm able to do something, or I'm just really like, God, I'm really tired right now. And then I come back to my reality. Oh, you know what? And then I say to myself, yeah, it's okay to be tired. I am allowed to be tired sometimes. That's okay. At a time when I didn't expect to be tired. That's okay, by the way, you know. So again, I can layer that loving kindness can come in. But loving kindness comes in when I got mindful, wow, I'm really tired, and look at the tone I am treating myself to right now. Like, I'm not allowed to be tired as if I'm 32 years old, right? And then shared humanity. I bet there's a lot of other people that feel this limitation and feel this way. Oh yeah, okay. Let me just feel that. Let me feel their experience, but other people feel this. I'm not alone in this feeling. And loving kindness is, you know what, Amy, you're allowed to be tired right now. That's okay. So slowly we introduce, and then here's another part from this exercise. But please explore, again, what factors or fears come into play that lead you to treat yourself and others so differently. For me, it was an unrealistic notion of myself, unrealistic expectations. And I could go under layer and layer of that to keep peeling back, to understand that what are your fundamental fears, your fundamental factors. Okay, now here's the last component of this little exercise. You can write down, if you'd like, how you think things might change if you responded to yourself in the same way you typically respond to a close friend when they're suffering. Again, could you jot down a few notes how things might change, how you think things would change if you could respond to yourself the way you respond to a friend? Just jot down a few notes if you like right now. And in a sense, as an exercise from here on out, you could practice this for the rest of your life, but why not try treating yourself like a good friend and see what happens? See what happens. My day got so much better when the first half of it was kind of crashing and burning, because it wasn't just the taxes. It kind of went from there into another thing that wasn't working, another thing, right? And then also, due to my gentleness, due to my inserting the gentleness, okay, through that exercise of stopping, I pushed the pause button and I really started focusing on my breath, getting quiet in myself, still, grounded, which lent balance. And from that space, gratitude grew, kindness to myself. And so through that, I could take better control the rest of the day. And then reestablishing a motivation. Oh, wait a minute. Everything's really okay right now. Everything's really okay. Put it in perspective. Could you put it in perspective, which is a little treat, honestly, of loving kindness I try to offer myself as often as possible. It contributes to your happiness. So here's my perspective today. This wasn't working, that wasn't working, whatever it is. Every day something won't be working because this is samsara. And when you really have a problem, generally, It's when your health goes downhill. Many of you know this already, okay? But think about when you have a more serious or chronic health issue, and think about the people you know that have those serious health issues right now. Not only the people with COVID, people with cancer, diabetes, HIV, Parkinson's, you name it. There's so many things out there, okay? If you don't have something like that, this is my perspective, I really don't have any problems. And the problems that I do have seem to be pretty small in comparison. So that's another little offering of self-compassion, is keeping that perspective open for me, rather than railing against the system. You know, we right now are very aware of social media. Some of you participated in marches for Black Lives Matters. You've been, you know, you might post on social media angry things or this and that or like that or things like that, right? And we get into this divisive space and we lose perspective. So for me, another act of self-compassion is to limit my time online and on social media. I tend to post if I'm teaching some class or something like that. You know, checking out my screen time of what I'm using it for, and offering myself other space to read books. So this is a time for me. Our library is open part-time, meaning I can't go into the library, but I can request books and I can go and pick them up, real books. I like real books, okay? But I also have books on my phone. So give yourself a little treat to read a book instead of watching something. It's a different type of exercise for me, and I don't find I get it. It's a different kind of tired I get, not the screen tired, not the Zoom fatigue, right? And there's a lot of interesting stuff in books. So that's a part of my activities every day, is I want to read every day, up from a book, not the newspaper, not magazines, but you know, whatever it is you're reading, I find that really helpful. It could be a Dharma thing. It could be, you know, one of these self-compassion books. There's a lot of great stuff like that, and many other wonderful books out there like that. What's the other thing I'm reading? Oh, I'm reading a book right now. I don't know if it's maybe more for women, but it could be for other people, for guys. Some of you have read this book called Untamed. Untamed, anybody read it? Glennon Doyle? Anyway, it's a little Brené Brownish. Brené Brown, if you're familiar with her. I like this book. It's very fun. It's a quick read. And How to Get Free by Being Wild. Just what a nun needs, right? But seriously, it's actually very helpful about being authentic. And so again, I found that book, some people recommended it, great. I got it on my phone. But you can, you know, check in with your library. Some of them are open only to pick up books, but my library is very happy. I order online and I can go pick up the book in person with a mask like that. It's perfectly fine. So that's a little self-compassion, some practices, a little treats you can give yourself in a different way, okay? Okay, let me continue on. So one of the things that's helpful for us, and this is where we get sidelined and I think frustrated, if you can't be present with difficult moments, chances are you won't be present with the best moments of your life either. Haven't we missed some of the best moments? That's why I was saying to you, when you come out of the meditation, 5 minutes, breathing in, you're breathing out. You notice something uncomfortable. Things were not working during the day. You didn't finish this thing. You got a phone call that interrupted you that was a disturbance and it really upset your mind. And you're noticing all these things. Hit the pause button. Imagine you're pushing a pause button. Stop. Start breathing more deeply. start breathing more deeply. So what I mentioned is if you want to go into a meditation like that, very simple, a lot of people start their meditations like that, perfectly fine, okay? When you come out of that little 5-minute exercise, okay, pause for a moment there. Don't come out and race and grab your pen and I got my phone and I jump up and get in the car and out the door. Take a couple of minutes to savor the pause, to savor the breathing deeply. We rush right off to the next thing. Take a moment. This is a way that sets me up for being present with the best moments of my life as well. So we're aware when we're suffering. We don't like that. We're very aware of the suffering, and we're very aware when I feel disappointed and the guilt starts circling and I didn't do and I'm not good enough. I feel like a failure. This isn't working. Or maybe I should just speed up, and we're aware of that. Okay. But if I'm also not being present with that through my mindfulness, are you savoring the good moments? You're having dinner with the people you're quarantined with. You're walking down your street and there's some beautiful tree or beautiful flower. Are you checking it out for a moment? Just savoring that moment. I just picked, I have a little side garden, and I just picked a bunch of basil and I made some pesto, and I just was looking at it in the garden of like how you grow stuff. So cool, how things grow. Just taking a moment there. You know, and I was a little bit in a hurry because I went, oh, I've got to teach at 7. I want to get this batch done before that. But I was just 2 seconds marveling at how something grows, the greenness of it or something, or that particular leaf. Doesn't matter, okay? So what you can do is you're developing a process of establishing a new relationship with your thoughts and feelings rather than directly challenging them. In a sense, you're allowing this friendship. And so what I've noticed lately is, and I really love the word love, bringing that more into my experience every day. It sounds cliched, love, but seriously, I'm trying to have a more present experience with everything I'm interacting with. And I live alone right now. So I'm not interacting with a lot of people, but sometimes I am. But I'll give you an experience is, I'm interacting right now, not only with all of you, but via my computer screen and my computer. So what I do is when I get in front of the computer, some people have a notion that, oh, it's my computer in the Zoom call and I'm going to be fatigued and I'm going to be zoomed out. Okay, that's one way to approach it. With my self-compassion, I'm kind of like, okay, isn't this cool, my computer? Computers are pretty cool. I think they're kind of a marvel. Okay, now I know they mess up at times, and I know they freeze and they crash and on and on. I've been there through all those things, okay? But right now it's working, and I think like, thank you, computer. Like I'm loving my computer. And I don't mean to sound kind of woo-woo, but I'm really like here with my computer, and then all of you through that space, okay? And it can be anything. It can be you turn the light on, and just 2 seconds. How great, electricity. You know, like we use these all day long. We use these phones all day long, right? Okay, so, you know, and some people go, oh, my phone, I'm sick of my phone. I'm putting my phone away. I'm on the phone. You know, I see for some people, it's like an appendage. They're never without their phone in their hand, right? Well, I look at the phone, there's a lot of great stuff. Like how His Holiness in Dharamsala last night, I wanted to lie in bed, I was tired, and just have His Holiness, and there was His Holiness live from India on my phone. So I can love that. I can create positivity there, or you can rail against everything. It's your choice. Now there are times you're gonna have little meltdowns and you're gonna go, well, this isn't working, and the wireless is not working, my computer's not working, and I'm sick of being on Zoom. Okay, fair enough. With my mindfulness again, can I just note that? Before I make a huge elaboration about it in a big story, I'm just noting I'm a little frustrated, or I'm very frustrated. And can I, again, make a pause, take a deeper inhalation, a deeper exhalation. Okay, there's frustration. Everybody feels that at some point. Okay? If my friend were feeling this frustrated, what would be my tone in speaking to them? What would be my tone? They come to me with their frustration. Can I please direct that tone gentle towards myself right now? I'm doing the best I can. Samsara is enormously frustrating at times. Mm-hmm. And don't I have a really great situation to deal with it? A lot of times I do. Do you understand? Am I communicating? So again, we try our best with this, but these are just some basic, I mean, most of you know these things, but just, again, you know, discussing a little bit. Let me layer some stages to acceptance and well-being. You know, how do I soften my resistance when I have a lot of unbearable emotional pain? What do? Let's look at this. Okay. These are stages of it. First, I have aversion, whether you want to call it frustration, irritation, annoyance, anger, pain. I have resistance in aversion. I have avoidance in aversion. You know, I ruminate in aversion. My first stage is this aversion. I can't handle this. This is not okay. And then there goes my guilt, my disappointment, and the thoughts turn again and again and again, circling through that. First step. Number 2, this is one of my favorite words I'm using now. So when I get irritated, and like today is, the next thing that comes in for me is I get curious now. Curiosity. I get curious. My old pattern before the Dharma was I would just get angry at stuff. And, you know, I'd be really angry and no curiosity, just angry and then railing and then, you know, this is broken and you're messed up and I never do anything right. And okay, now I get curious. And this is, again, stages to acceptance and well-being. If you want to walk that path, acceptance and well-being. So first you're noticing the unbearable emotional pain, whatever it is for you. Okay, and you have small amounts of pain, but then you have the unbearable emotional pain. We've all been through the whole range, okay? I have aversion to that. Resisting it, avoiding it, okay? I numb myself out to it, and then I ruminate. Stories in my head, turning. Okay, so number 2, get curious. Get curious. And this is where, and this is a hard part, you have to turn toward the discomfort. Okay, and let me add these two words that go with it. With interest. Turn toward the discomfort with interest. With interest. What is going on in there? Wow. What is happening? Okay. Number 3, tolerance. This is about safely enduring. Safely enduring. Okay, well, I'm interested in why all the doors and windows are shutting and I'm feeling so disillusioned right now, so disappointed, so guilty, so much of a failure or fatigue or whatever it is. I'm interested in what's the root of that, what's happening, and I'm just gonna hang here. I'm safe, I'm okay right now watching it. I can tolerate this. I can manage this. Mm-hmm. I'm in it right now. I'm doing it like that. Number 4, allowing. I'm letting the feelings come and go. Letting the feelings come and go. I don't always feel this way. I don't always have unbearable emotional pain. I don't always feel guilty. I don't always feel disappointed. I don't always feel like a failure or that I'm not good enough or I'm not doing something right, right? But sometimes the feelings come, and allow them, the coming and going. Don't let it rigidly holding there. Let it come and go. It flows. You have flowing thoughts come and go. You just watch it. There goes one. Oh, there goes the thought of guilt. There's another feeling of guilt. There's disappointment. I'm allowing. Very different than rigidly holding and feeling stuck in something. Number 5, friendship. Friendship. Embracing. I'm noting a hidden value. I'm noting a hidden value in what's arising. And again, if you can't be present with difficult moments, chances are you're not present with the best moments of your life. So what you can develop, again, is this process of establishing a new relationship with thoughts and feelings, okay, rather than having to challenge every single one of them and be perfect. Again, it's a process of establishing a new relationship with your thoughts and feelings. It's a little bit more of a dance, the flow of it, okay? Acceptance refers to a conscious choice to experience our sensations, our feelings, our thoughts, just as they are moment to moment. Okay. Are there any questions right now? And if you want, just put your hand up and you can unmute your mic. George.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is to be able to listen to oneself. When someone calls me and ask my help or whatever, you listen, you really listen. And just listening is huge. But when it comes for you, how does the I listen to the I? I think that is really the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm. So that's where I find that whether you want to just start with the 5 minutes of the inhalation, exhalation, hitting the pause and stopping for a moment. And for me, it's my meditation practice. Like for me, it's essential on my cushion to have these still moments during the day when those thoughts just sift out and I can hear underneath what's happening. Like today, I'll review later on, what was going on earlier today when everything was crashing and burning? Like, what was that about? What does it teach me in there? So slowly, so I give myself the space and time, the pause, in whichever way you can, whether it's 5 minutes, can you give yourself the 5 minutes periodically through the day? Because I think we have that time right now, more than we sometimes have it when we're running around outside. But it's in that time, George, when I find I can hear my voice more and more. I mean, you have your sitting practice, so can you find that stillness and hear, especially if you have an upset, that's where I can go in and kind of say, what was going on there? What did I want in that moment? What did I expect? And I was so proud of myself because my friend who helped me with my taxes, she does it every year. I had no blame for her whatsoever. I think in the past I would have had a little bit, well, why didn't she do that? And I had none of that. I just asked for her help and said, would you have, and she helped me she gave me a couple sites, go here, click on that. And so that was a shift for me, but those quiet spaces are where I can reflect and be with my thoughts, be with myself of what is myself saying to myself. Does that work for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly what I try to do, because you have to allow yourself to also vent to yourself. The same way you allow your friends to vent to you and you help them, you have to allow yourself to really vent it and then go down deeply. And I like the fact when you say, go towards your discomfort, like really look at the discomfort. But listening to oneself is not easy.
No, it's not easy. And when we start meditating, I think that's an unnerving part for people. is to be with that part. And I do know people when they did their first solo retreat, usually if it's a little bit of a longer retreat, longer than a weekend, they find that space unnerving. You know, there they are alone with their mind. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, because we're so used to distracting ourselves with so many different little tasks and talking to someone else and this technology and that technology. So the more you get familiar with the meditation space, it becomes a resource when you're turning toward the discomfort. But again, please include the words with interest. You're turning towards the discomfort with interest, not to create more pain for myself and to wallow in the pain. It's more of like, how come I'm feeling the pain right now? And I think I felt this pain before. What was the pattern that was happening that I'm perpetuating? Is there a way I don't have to create this pattern anymore? And one thing for me was, I think in the past, long in the past, I may have started blaming the taxes weren't working and they didn't file this, and I would have been blaming somebody other than myself. And that didn't come up now because of all the time I've sat and I went, you know, there is nobody to blame. It's no one's fault. These are things that just happen like the direct consequence was I gave her the wrong account number. That's all. It was no big thing. It's easily remedied, right? And I went to my bank and my bank just reversed the 2 fees, $56 in fees. They said, no problem. I just asked them nicely. They could have said no, would have been okay, I would have paid it, like, you know, but I just said, you guys, I made a mistake. Would you? And they said, no problem. Like, how kind is that? So like when I settle down, so that meditation space, it's so enormously important, especially right now. But the thing is, we have the time right now to set it up and to start walking in there to get familiar with it. It's not easy to speak to yourself and to have that dialogue with yourself. But again, when it's uncomfortable, we're doing it, please remind yourself with interest so I can learn from that process. Anything else people want to check in or anything?
There's a question in the chat room from Elizabeth. Do you want me to read it or can you see it?
Please. Yeah, please.
Okay. It says, what would be a self-compassionate way of dealing with one's own discomfort level, being masked and abiding by social distancing vis-a-vis dear friends who don't mask and believe that C-19 doesn't exist? Have given myself the permission not to see friends in a gentle way, but friends sometimes feel rejected. Okay.
Yeah, good question, Elizabeth. What I would say in this category, and I'm in a similar area, there's, I'm trying to understand the unmasked, you know, they're interfering with our civil rights by asking us to wear a mask. I'm not sure I get my mind around it all, because I'll put it this way. When they discovered that seatbelts in cars scientifically saves lives, they made it a law to protect us. And I don't really read many stories of people saying, for me to wear a seatbelt, you're interfering with my civil liberties. So I don't quite get it. So what I would do is just on your own, Elizabeth, I try to find kind, compassionate ways again, rather than creating hostility. So initially, the first thing you need to do is look at if resistance and aversion comes up in your mind, because that's where it starts. So meaning that you might notice that you're angry with them for not wearing a mask. So first I notice that and I'll say, wow, like these people that think it's invading their civil liberties and interfering. So then I'll go, well, you know, people have different opinions. This is samsara. You know, it's a pool of suffering. So that's going to show up people that think differently than me. But, you know, I also think it's interesting that people think differently than me. If everybody thought the way I did, honestly, that would be really, really boring. So that's interesting that people think that way. I've actually dialogued with some of those people because I'm kind of interested in how they think that way, and how do they think about seatbelts? And seriously, like, I want to know what, so then then I come to a choice. Let me first try to create a friendship with that in my mind, where I've gone through the aversion. I've noticed the aversion coming up. I've gotten curious about it, turning towards the discomfort with interest. Rather than blaming and judging them, it's about my mind. Tolerance. I can hang out here with my own wanting to wear a mask. These people don't. Okay. You know, the world's an interesting place that way. People do different things. And then letting my feelings come and go. I notice some feelings come in that I'm not feeling generous towards these people, or not feeling overly open-hearted and compassionate. Letting those feelings come and go. Some people I feel pretty good about. Some people I notice they're a bit confused as well, but they choose not to wear a mask. Okay. They're not sure which way to go. And then my friendship is embracing all of that. Is just being present with those difficult moments. And then my response and my activity is, when I go out, I choose to wear a mask. That's your own personal thing, that's you're going to choice. But you may decide and just be very kind to your friends and say, you know, my feeling in a gentle tone, that I feel right now the best thing I can do for everyone is to wear a mask. And because you're not, and I'm concerned about, you know, the spread, I'd love to do some face calls with you guys. When are you available? What do you think of that? Elizabeth, if you want to unmute, anything you'd like to? I don't know if she's disappeared. Okay. Anyone else comments on that? I mean, do you know what I mean? Is we're still, I'm basically able to exude a kind response that to the most part, because I've looked at my mind, is generally coming from a somewhat authentic place. I'm not tamping it down and resisting and pretending that I wasn't annoyed at some point, but the annoyance keeps us, oh, you're having a problem with your Zoom, okay. The annoyance tends to keep us divided. So I can still gently embrace. I think they would also find it a little surprising that I'm so gentle with them in the response, rather than, because I have a feeling other people are hostile with them for not wearing a mask. I've actually seen it in my area where people start fighting with each other like that. So I find the more I can have a kind response to somebody, the woman, I was in the grocery store the other day and a woman behind me, we both had our masks on. And somehow when I turned to look at her, we interacted, our eyes interacted. And I, you know, you can kind of see when somebody's smiling, you know, with their mask on. And I looked at her and then I just said, well, these are really interesting times right now, aren't they? You know, but she must have been in some other space, and she somehow immediately started attacking our governor, the governor of Pennsylvania. And I really like him. He's very subdued, and he's more kind of a scholar. And but I like him. I think it's been helpful, his responses with COVID and what we've been doing, having a lot of cases, and he's been pretty cautious. So, and she just started attacking the governor, which I thought was weird. And then I just turned to her in a really, really sweet space and said, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And, but if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have my health care right now. And then her eyes just kind of like got really big, like she couldn't imagine what, and she didn't say any more, but it was, you know, we kind of had a pleasant, it wasn't like a negative interaction like that. So I just try to find a soft tone, but without attacking and being, you know, and suddenly, well, I'm right, I have the right view and you are wrong. And so I think some people that are unmasked have felt that way. Okay, so we've got a comment. Some people can't wear them, yeah, because of anxiety and claustrophobia. I did learn this recently from people about masks, that there's people that have breathing issues with masks. So, you know, I think some of them do. I think some don't, and they say they do because they don't want to wear a mask. But again, it is true. And I just, for me, it's about accepting. If I accept more about myself, then the chances are I may be more accepting of somebody else. And, you know, because there's people that disagree with my views, right? And so they might feel if they don't want to accept what I'm saying, you know, that comes from my own karma, not accepting somebody else like that. I want to do one more exercise. This is a very, very brief self-compassion break. Self-compassion break, okay? We've been talking a little bit around this, and some of it is like this, but I just want you to take a moment right now. And I want you to reflect. You could close your eyes for a moment. And I'd like you to think of a situation in your life right now that is difficult, that is causing you stress. And bring this situation to mind. And I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but just for the sake of the exercise, see if you can actually feel the stress for a moment, that emotional discomfort in your body. And now using our mindfulness, again, these three components that help bring more self-compassion into your mind, into your body. Okay, here's using mindfulness. Acknowledge, this is a moment of suffering. And just say that to yourself for a moment. This is a moment of suffering. You could also add, you could also just label it like this with mindfulness. This hurts. Or ouch. Or this is stress. So number one, that's always available when this discomfort arises, applying some mindfulness to it. Number two, if we'd like to apply common humanity, our shared humanity, okay? This is a saying you could say, suffering is a part of life. Suffering is a part of life. Speak that to your discomfort right now. And these are other options. You could say, other people feel this way. Or, I'm not alone. Or, we all struggle in our lives. We all struggle in our lives. Use one of those statements right now, applying shared humanity to this discomfort. And with loving kindness, dealing with the discomfort now with loving kindness. And if you feel, you could put your hand on your heart. You could clasp your hands together if that's comforting for you. You could wrap your arms around yourselves. Or adopt some sort of soothing touch to yourself that feels right for you. And you can say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I be kind to myself. Breathe that in. And you could also ask yourself, applying this loving kindness, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Is there a phrase that speaks to you in this particular situation? For instance, may I give myself the compassion that I need? Or may I learn to accept myself as I am? Or may I forgive myself? Or may I be strong? Or may I be patient? Just try, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Can you say a phrase to yourself that would express that? And you can adopt the phrase as a mantra. And imagine you're saying it to yourself. And slowly allow the discomfort to melt a little bit. Or does it shift it at all? So again, consider, may I give myself the compassion that I need? May I learn to accept myself as I am? May I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? Or whatever other phrase lends some self-compassion to you. Please relax and slowly open your eyes. And just note right now and savor. Notice whatever thoughts arise. Just savoring this ability to have this exercise, this mini self-compassion break that you can bring into any moment of your life. So there are a lot of other directions we could go in right now, but I was actually thinking to stop there. I just want to see if there's any other questions or anything else from that last exercise as well, or any other questions anyone would like to bring up. Oops. Yes, Sheila?
So I have a question. With all this, I find that when I look at these things, and then I try to give myself some self-compassion, but then there's another voice that comes in and goes, oh no, you know, you're not good enough. You don't really deserve that, which is sort of a double whammy.
Yep. But isn't that habit? Isn't that
Yeah.
habit? You've been doing that for so long. So
Forever.
for me, I recognize some of those voices. I mean, over time I have, and over time with my practice, where I'm continuing, again, in the beginning, it takes a lot of effort, where I'm continuing to apply a healthier view, healthier, more positive exercises, so that that starts to be more automatically accessed. So you just have to keep making that effort where it starts to come a little bit more easily. And again, it takes a lot of effort right now. So I begin to recognize that voice. I recognize it with curiosity. And then through the curiosity, oh yes, that's just a pattern I've had for so many years from being raised like this, with not that anybody was bad and things, but that's just a habit and conditioning that I got. And that's something I do over and over again, and that's why it's more accessible. So again, making the effort, and you might want to have little cheat sheets or hang on your wall a little self-compassion break, so that immediately you go, wait a minute, I'm telling myself the negative stories. Let me try something different, you know, and let me do that one day, and tomorrow the same negative tapes come up. So I need to bring in the self-compassion exercises again and again and again and again. So I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy like that. Anybody else have experience like that, I would say, of, you know, any strides they've made from doing some of the practices?
I would just say that you reminded me of some of that when you were saying, where are you feeling that in your body? And so, for example, when I've started to notice, I realize I hold a lot of tension in my jaw. So sometimes if I realize I'm starting to get a little bit stressed, I'll check in with what's going on with my jaw, and I'll notice that it's tight. And so I'll just make a yawn, relax that a little bit, and it kind of stops the cascade. So that's one way.
That's great. No, that's really great. And the other thing is, I know a number of you, so I've seen over the years the progress that you've made, those of you really doing the practice. And again, I know the effort it takes. I'm in it with you, you know, to see. So it does, please be patient with yourself, that again, changing your mind is not going to happen in 4 hours. I wish it were, but it's not. You know, these are our lifetime's practice. So we just want to evolve, get a little bit better, but what it is, you know, I used to go over here, and these were the issues that were coming up over and over, the negative, and I've had to move over here to the healthier behavior, the healthier exercises again and again. So I know it's hard. I know it's hard meditating. It's hard sitting. It's hard to get that discipline. Some of you are doing it. You know the enormous benefits it lends. There's no question. And for me right now, you know, again, we have our projects and we have things, and sometimes it goes better than others. And I just wasn't feeling comfortable where I was sitting in the house. So I just, in this time, and it didn't take long, I set up a new little meditation space, and it's just nothing fancy. It's part of it's the side of a closet. And it's a nice little space, and it's also a new little space for me. So I feel kind of a new energy there. You know, some places get a little stale and you're kind of sitting in there with other bad habits. And so now I've got a new little area that doesn't have any of those lazy habits or other stuff I was doing. And you might try to do something like that, but it doesn't have to be elaborate or take a lot of time. You know, this didn't take me more than a couple days to get this set up, and it could have actually been a half of a day. You know, it's just that I was kind of getting stalled with other things, you know, which is pretty normal. So like that. So it's a great time to just find a place where you're comfortable to do it. And if you can't get something like that going, again, that accessibility of simply the inhalation, exhalation, feeling grounded, using the earth as support, gratitude is always there. Those basic fundamental things are so helpful right now to dismantle some of the hard rigidity we're throwing at ourselves. You know, this is a big time on the planet, and to feel stressed is not unusual at all. To feel depressed, it's not unusual at all. This is a weird time right now. And when you're not having a lot of personal contact with people, not that all that personal contact is positive, right? But there's something about personal contact that makes us feel alive. And I notice it's very different to teach on Zoom than to teach in person. And there's something very juicy about having personal contact. So some of you are not doing that with the normal people you're normally interacting with, or you're quarantined with some people that are driving you crazy. That's very normal. It's totally normal to get on each other's nerves, being in a confined space. And so please give yourself a break. And when you give yourself a break, you give somebody else a break, because they feel that around you, that you're being kind to yourself, you're being gentle with yourself. I use a lot of humor with myself when things aren't working very well. You know, I come from a family, we all have a sense of humor, and I like to laugh, and it lightens everything up. It lightens everything up. So like that. Anything else before we close? Anyway, I want to thank all of you for joining. I want to thank Shantideva Center for hosting, and Sheila, thank you so much.